State falls to Western Kentucky, 28-20, the final play of the game right here. An attempt to get into the end zone by Ball State as a last-ditch effort. Unfortunate, doesn't go the way of the Cardinals. 28-20, the final score in favor of the Hilltoppers. Welcome you back inside Sports Link Game Day alongside Jack Kizer and Coach David Elson. I'm Jarin Matheny, and Coach, 28-20 the final score. Obviously not the result you guys were looking for today. What's your initial takeaway from the game?
Oh, I think it's a culmination of a lot of, just missed opportunities, little things here and there. At the end of the day, we needed to get the ball back to our offense sooner there at the end. We needed to get a stop on their, when they went down and went up 21-20, and just couldn't find a way to get it. We'll obviously have to look at the video and see exactly what happened there, but you got to give them credit. I think they came out and made a quarterback change in the second half and got some momentum there early, and then we just came up short.
How difficult was it to adjust to that quarterback change?
Well, the first drive really, because my scouting report on him was that he couldn't run very well, but he proved us wrong in a hurry there, and so that whole drive was really him making plays with his feet and scrambling, and they had that one quarterback run. So that one, but we kind of settled in and got after him the next couple series, and so felt good about the way our guys adjusted there. But at the end of the day, you got to find a way to get a stop, and in a game like this, you can't give up. Our offense, got 20 points. We had to keep them to 19, and that's the bottom line. Other
than the quarterback change, what else in the second half changed from that first half when you limited them to 7 points?
Really just, not much. I think they tried to run the ball a little bit more there, but I felt we were really strong against the run the entire game until that last series. And once again, you got to give them credit, and we just, we got to look at it and do a better job of, at end of the game, 4-minute type situation when we know they're going to run the ball, we got to stop the run, and that's falls on my shoulders, and we just got to do a better job.
21-20 going into that final drive. At what point did you just decide to let them score so you get the offense back
well,
on the field?
Coach knew, made a great call there and just said, hey, you think we ought to let them score? And I looked up the clock and our time. I said, absolutely. It makes the most sense. That's our only chance to win right here, because they could have started to kneel there. So, I thought we did the right thing, and I thought that was really smart on his part, and, gave us a chance. Obviously, there at the end, you never know what's going to happen. And so just really, really frustrating. I know our guys are frustrated that we were close and just feel like we're going to look at the video and be like, oh, man, it's always will come down to 3 to 5 plays where if you say if this would have happened, but at the end of the day, we didn't get the job done.
All right, Coach Elson, thank you very much. We appreciate you joining us here as we take a look at the highlights from today's contest. Ball State, start off the bat, the running game couldn't get really moving right off the bat, but they score on that first drive. Looked like things were a positive definitely for the Cardinals going forward, and then that second half just kind of happened, Jack.
Yeah, the offense stalled after that first drive. You see the pitch to Malik Dunner for the touchdown right there. A great opening drive for the Cardinals. And on defense, they had a good start, too. In the first half, just 7 points given up to Western Kentucky, but the quarterback changed. Stephen Duncan coming in for Davis Shanley. Duncan on your screen right here. His scrambling ability was really an X factor. It was an X factor in the second half for Western Kentucky. You heard David Elson talk about the scouting report for Duncan, the backup quarterback initially, and he proved them wrong. And Ball State adjusted just a little bit too late, and when they needed to pick up stops, they did not. Ball State had some field goals throughout the first half that they probably could have punched in for touchdowns, and that was a big part of Ball State's downfall today, in my opinion, and also the penalties. Penalties for over 100 yards. You can't win if that's happening, even if you do get a couple of touchdowns on the board, a couple of scores. That's a lot to overcome for Ball State, and Western Kentucky just made more big plays down the stretch in the final 2 touchdowns here in the fourth quarter. Just too much to overcome for the Cardinals.
And it was clearly the scrambling ability after halftime that really helped Western Kentucky. We saw Coach Elson write it on his whiteboard. They had to stop the scramble in here. You see the final play of the game, or one of the final plays of the game, Riley Miller towards the end zone just missed the ball, and Ball State just couldn't find a way to put it in the end zone once they got into the red zone. AJ, what were your initial takeaways?
The biggest thing for me was Ball State came out in the first half firing. That first drive was super impressive, and I loved what I saw from the offense. They mixed the play calling up. They had a jet sweep here, an option play to the outside. But in the second quarter, really things started slowing down, and they just weren't able to find their rhythm. And then in the second half, Western Kentucky with that quarterback swing, I mean, that changed everything. Stephen Duncan came in and torched the Ball State defense. He was able to make plays on the run, through the air, and really that was the game changer for Ball State because they just had no answers. It looked like they were completely confused and completely unaware of what was happening on the field. They just couldn't handle that third option. So the entire dynamic of the game changed coming into that second half. And for Ball State, and they got to figure out a way to handle multiple quarterbacks, especially coming into the MAC. There are a couple teams that have dual threat quarterbacks like that.
And it's not like Davis Shanley played bad. He was 13 for 18 in the first half and had I think 138 quarterback rating. That's outstanding. But Duncan came in and he provided, I guess, a level of effectiveness and a level of playmaking that Shanley didn't. So it was a gutsy move by Mike Sanford, former offensive coordinator at Notre Dame, head coach now for Western Kentucky, to bring in Duncan, and it provided dividends for Western Kentucky in that second half.
And two major things for Ball State. One on the offensive end, the penalties just kept racking up. A lot of holding calls for the Cardinals, and then we've seen it the first 4 weeks. Capitalizing in the red zone has been a big problem for Ball State.
But for Ball State, the biggest thing, going back to your penalties, 120 yards on 10 penalties. I mean, Ball State has to clean that up. That's just completely unacceptable. I know Coach knew, this week that's going to be the big emphasis, stop those penalties. Especially, late in the third quarter, there was two big penalties on Danny Pinter. They started to get a drive going, and he had two holding penalties and just completely killed the momentum of the game and really shifted the momentum back to Western Kentucky. So, Riley Neal, just another stat for him. I mean, he passed Mike New all-time, third all-time in Ball State passing yards history, but unfortunately for him, it's a footnote because he really was spectacular. 405 total yards of offense today. I mean, a very solid game for the offense. Just not able to turn that into points, and as you said, the red zone struggles continue. They need to be able to finish off drives, and I'm sure going into Kent State next week, that's going to be the big emphasis for the offense.
Ball State is first in the Mid-American Conference in first downs, but they're in the bottom half in scoring. About 23 points per game. They put up 20 today. So Ball State has to find ways to score touchdowns and not field goals, because 20 points against a Western Kentucky team that came in with a lot of motivation, a lot of heart, trying to pick up that first win of the season, 20 points won't get it done.
There were definitely some positives for that Ball State offense, though. Corey Lacanaria looks spectacular in this game. You talked about Riley Neal passing Coach Mike New for third all-time on the all-time passing list, but Lacanaria's ability to catch the ball and make something out of nothing in situations really helped Ball State.
Lacanaria and Miller were the two best players on Ball State's offense today. Lacanaria with nearly 100 yards receiving, and then Miller making all those big catches on Ball State's touchdown drive, and almost that big catch in the end zone for a touchdown on the last drive of the game. That big heave from Riley Neal, almost, but Lacanaria and Miller not enough for this Ball State offense because they didn't have the same rushing attack that they normally do. Usually 230 yards per game on the ground for Ball State. Not anywhere near that today, AJ.
Well, so they had 68 yards total in the first half, which I was completely surprised by. This offense, and especially the run game, and we're doing a series called RBU, and, the past 3 weeks, I haven't really seen the running game. I mean, it's been kind of non-existent. Caleb Huntley had a few nice runs there at the end of the game, but you got to get that run offense going more and really just shifting, the schemes of your offense. There were some blocking things, which I thought Ball State needed to clean up just a little bit, but we need to get these running backs going, because going into MAC play, they're going to be keying heavily on these receivers, because Lacanaria today, 8 receptions for 99 yards and a touchdown. I mean, that was really impressive. He was somebody that coming into the year, I know, talking to people on the staff, they were really excited because he's brought a lot of senior leadership to this team. But going back again to the running backs, I mean, they have to find ways to get these guys the ball and also find them, some daylight, because that's been the biggest problem.
And we saw a bright spot with the running back group on that first drive for Ball State. You get Huntley in for 2 plays on first and second and goal, and then you bring in Dunner and Gilbert, throw a little misdirection. They score on that. So there are positives for that running back group, but it's that consistency that Ball State's lacking.
I think the consistency comes from James Gilbert, and he didn't have the performance today that he did the last few weeks. Obviously, the first week was great against Central Connecticut State. Everybody played great against Central Connecticut State. The next 2 weeks, Gilbert still had good games. He was the leading rusher. He got a lot of touches. That wasn't the case today as much. Caleb Huntley was the leading rusher today, broke a couple of big ones. It was nice to see Huntley get back into the rotation and show what he can do, because everybody knows that Caleb Huntley is a good running back. He had over 1,000 yards last year in just over 7 games. So I think the running backs will be fine. It's just finding that balance, finding that rhythm on the offensive side. I think Ball State will get there, but hopefully for the Cardinals it does come soon because the conference season will be a difficult one to navigate.
And I completely agree. Coming into Maction next week is going to be a huge game for Ball State, trying to get their season back on track. I thought today, was an even bigger one, but now that you're 1-3, you have to be able to win next week against Kent State. Coach New only has one win in conference play his entire, first 2 years, which was against Buffalo on the road in his first season. But now, you're starting to play against teams that you're facing every year, so you have to be able to figure out ways to beat them. If not, it's going to be a long year for the Cardinals.
And MAC play does start next week, like you talked about, AJ. It starts here in the shoe against Kent State, one of the teams to be picked in the bottom tier of the Mid-American Conference. What changes does Ball State have to make starting next week?
For me, the biggest thing is finding consistency with the running backs, but also cleaning up the defense. The defense is, I'm not trying to sound too critical here, but the defense simply just did not look good in the second half. There was a lot of spacing issues. The secondary, they were playing a lot of zone coverage. Should have, played a little bit more press man-to-man and shut those receivers down. And that was the biggest thing against IU last week that I saw too. Was IU? They had all day. They could have, the quarterback could have sat back there and dropped bombs all game. And, Ball State, they're just going to have to clean up the defense a little bit, tighten it up, play a little bit more press coverage, force the quarterback to get outside the pocket more. But if, you have a mobile quarterback, put a spy on him so that way he's not able to pick up chunk yards and move the ball down the field.
Ball State's defense in the first half was the defense we saw at Notre Dame. And the turnovers weren't there, but they were still playing great on that side of the ball. But unfortunately for the Cardinals, it just didn't carry over to the second half.
And the Cardinals fall 28-20 to Western Kentucky. We're going to head into the news conference room and listen to head coach Mike New.
I've coached in a game where we've had double-digit penalties. That's disappointing because there were some situations that certainly caused us into some long yardage situations where we got behind the chains, and that's difficult when you do that. So disappointing in that. So anxious to see the tape and see, what we can do to clean that up, and a frustrating day here.
Past couple of weeks, it seems like Riley Hill has struggled to find his receivers offensively. What was it like to see him kind of have a bounce back game tonight?
I think Riley's one of those guys that does such a good job of staying the course, and he's the same guy, preparation every week, and he works hard at it. He works hard to develop a relationship with the receivers. So it was good to see him make some big plays out there, especially the way he started the game. I thought he did a nice job of getting off to a good start and really seeing the field well, leading us on that first touchdown drive. But Riley Neal's a stud, and we just got to do whatever we can to clean up some of the penalties that we had today to make sure that doesn't cause, put him in a tough situation where he's forced to, face 3rd and 15 and trying to make a big play.
And it seemed like every time you guys found the end zone or scored, Western Kentucky would come right back with a score of their own, put points on the board. Can you comment on the competition out there going back and forth like that?
It was a good game. There were some long drives, I think, on both sides. You had a lot of the scoring drives, 13-9, 11-15, 13, 11-8-9. There were some long drives by both teams, and so Western Kentucky's a good team. We knew they, record certainly not an indicator of the type of football team that they are, but you have to give them credit for responding. When we score a touchdown there, and then they respond 4 minutes later with a score. So that's you have to give them credit and tip your hat to them as far as being able to come right back and respond to a little adversity.
Coach, you mentioned that the penalties, after you got off to such a good start offensively, I think Riley started out 9 for 9. How much did you feel that the penalties held you back the rest of that first half?
Well, they hurt, that's for sure, because when you're facing long yardage situation, it's tough. There's not very many plays on your sheet other than saying, man, we just got to get the ball in its hands, or if you throw it down the field. The one time it was long yardage, we got a pass interference on that Justin Drew there. So those are tough. Those are tough situations to be in because, dialing up a pass play and thinking, man, I'm going to get 15, 18, 19 yards, whatever it is. Those are tough. But yeah, we got to look at that. We got to look at the tape. I'm anxious to look at it and see what we can do to clean those up.
I know you mentioned last week after the game that this isn't Ball State football. This isn't how we play. What's your message to the guys after this one?
Our non-conference schedule's over. There's nothing we can do to change anything that's happened. We finished that off today. We got to get ready tomorrow morning once we get back in the building to learn to watch. There's going to be things to clean up and watch from the tape and trying to emphasize still getting better. But our focus shifts totally to the Mid-American Conference now. We're 0-0 in MAC play, and we start at home with Kent State next week.
It seemed like opposed to
Ball State falls to Western Kentucky 28-20. We now welcome on Corey Lacanaria. And Corey, let's start. We saw you kind of gimping on the sideline. How are you feeling after today's game?
Just a little sore, but nothing to be too worried about, so I'll be fine.
Okay.
You had a great performance today, nearly 100 yards. What do you think sparked that performance?
Just the kind of coverages that they were playing. I just happened to be the open man. Just a lot of rub routes, that kind of deal.
What do you guys have to do next week to prepare for MAC play?
Well, we haven't started watching film. And I think it obviously starts with that. So, yeah, we don't know yet, but just about every MAC team is about the same. Just pretty spread offense, three wide receivers, that kind of deal. So our defense will have to prepare for that.
You guys were able to string together some drives over the course of the game. Why do you what was working when you were stringing together those drives, and then what wasn't working when you weren't able to move the ball down the field?
I think it was the perfect mix of run and pass. I think we kind of got away with that. I'll have to watch the film just to kind of rehash on it, but that's kind of what it felt like.
What are some of the things you guys as a wide receiver group have been working on through the first 4 weeks that you thought played out well today?
Just detailed route running. We've faced a lot of man, so that really comes in handy in those kind of situations. So, yeah, we've been working on detailed route running to just get out of our breaks faster than they can break on the ball.
What did Coach New tell you guys in the locker room after today's loss?
Just on to the next one. You can't. There's nothing we can do about it now, and that's pretty evident. But yeah, we just gotta leave this behind, learn from our mistakes, and get ready for the next opponent.
All right, Corey, thank you very much for joining us. We'll take a look back at some of the highlights from today. And Corey, of course, had a big game himself, 99 yards and a touchdown for the senior wide receiver, Corey Lacanaria. Obviously not the result Ball State wanted, but that first drive showed how dynamic this offense could be, Jack.
Yeah, Lacanaria was involved from the very beginning. You saw him on screen there. You see the Dunner touchdown once again, and the defense came up big in the first half, but in that second half, they were able to explode. The Ball State offense just wasn't able to string together enough drives with the likes of Lacanaria and Miller and the running backs, and I think that's what was Ball State's downfall today, not sustaining drives along with those penalties. And then obviously the defense faltered a little bit in the second half. Western Kentucky found a rhythm, found explosive plays with Stephen Duncan. But Corey Lacanaria was a big reason for why Ball State had the success it did, even if it was limited at times. Lacanaria, in my opinion, was today's MVP from the offensive side of the ball for Ball State.
And Ball State falling to Western Kentucky 28-20. Guys, what are your final thoughts, and what does Ball State have to do moving into next week?
Say for me, the biggest thing, Ball State, clean up the defense. You have to be able to get off the field and give your offense more opportunities. There were simply too many long drives. Western Kentucky led the time of possession battle, 31 minutes and 25 seconds. Just simply not good enough ever today. And then for the offense, they got to finish drives. They going into the red zone, they had a lot of good drives which were sustainable, but they just weren't able to find the red zone and find the end zone, and that was the biggest problem. You have to be able to put points on the board. You can't settle for field goals every single drive, otherwise it's going to put your defense in tough spots. And in the end of the game, a close one like that, every single point's going to matter. So it's a big thing for me.
Mike New said Riley Neal was a stud. That's what we heard in the press conference, and I thought Riley Neal played exceptional today. He was very accurate. He made good decisions, didn't make mistakes, gave his receivers chances on balls. I thought he was pretty accurate throwing the ball down the field. The problem was the line at times, all those holding penalties, and there's been some shifting on the offensive line due to injuries, and that's something, unfortunately, you can't control if you're Ball State. Caleb Slavin, Alex Joss, the left side of that line, the starters at the beginning of the year, they're out now. We're not sure for how long, but today they were gone, and Andrew Ponish, the initial center to start the year, moves to left tackle. Chris Beach, the backup right guard, ends up snapping balls. So I think that the difficulties along the offensive line came because they haven't established that cohesiveness yet with that core group. So hopefully that improves for Ball State and the holding penalties go away. But a really tough loss today for the Cardinals, and something they'll have to respond from next week and showcase their toughness. It'll be a difficult MAC season, but I think this team is talented enough to navigate it and at least give themselves a chance to make a bowl game this year.
We'll see what they can do starting next week. That'll do it for us here on the Ball State Sports Link post-game show. For Adrian, Jarding, and Jack Kizer, I'm Jarin Matheny. Ball State falls to Western Kentucky 28-20, the final score. They play Kent State here at home next weekend. We'll have game day as well. We'd like to give a thank to our executive producer, Erinn Casey, as well as our technical director, Jared Franken, and our entire SL Game Day crew. Once again, Ball State falls to Western Kentucky 28-20, the final score. We'll be back here next weekend for Kent State and Ball State here at home. This has been a presentation of Ball State Sports Link.